Hi, welcome to another episode of The Lab with Good Cube Kitchen. My name is Yassine Butler, and today we're going to be making something absolutely naughty. We're going to be making country fried ribs, or chicken fried ribs. We're going to also make pork. We're going to also make some pork-based gravy and some collard greens. So, if you're ready, let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to prep our ribs. Now, the rib prep takes some overnight cooking, and so I'm going to put all of our ribs in the pressure cooker. I'm going to pressure cook them, and then I'm going to allow them to cool overnight, and in the morning we're going to get started with our ribs. In our pressure cooker, there's about 3 cups of water and some Lori seasoning salt. We're going to layer our ribs in crossways so that they can get an even distribution of pressure while they are cooking. The water has already come to a rolling boil. Going to set our pressure cooker to the highest pressure for 15 minutes and then allow them to naturally release their pressure when completed. Now to give our ribs a second layer of flavor with garlic salt, crushed red pepper, thyme, want to get generous with that, and some onion powder. Making sure to season them both the same. Going to add over some oregano. And finally some black pepper. It is absolutely necessary to make the stank face when seasoning your ribs if you want them to come out good. Now going to cover and refrigerate our ribs until tomorrow morning. Also going to refrigerate our pork broth, which we will use to make our gravy. Adding over to our pan 2 tablespoons of butter, crushed red pepper, turning it on to a medium heat, allowing our crushed red pepper to become fragrant. Adding over our collard greens, some garlic salt, onion powder, off screen a little better than bouillon, allowing it to saute until caramelized, then adding over 2 cups of water. Let's get to working on those biscuits. One thing that I definitely want to do that I haven't done before is I want to give a shout out to the people whose recipe I'm using for these biscuits. So that recipe is going to be in the description. First thing you need to do, you need to cut up your butter. Measure out and add over 1 cup of flour, baking powder, 1½ teaspoons, pinch of sugar, another pinch of sugar, that was too small of a pinch, pinch of salt. Whisk together your dry ingredients. Drop in your very cold butter. Begin to break up one cup of milk. Make a well. Gently incorporate all the dry and wet ingredients until you get a shaggy mess, and then fold with your hands. Clean off the excess dough with the back of your knife. Then turn out onto a floured piece of parchment paper. In order to create all of those flaky layers, you're simply going to continue to fold the dough over in half, turning each time. You're going to do this 8 to 16 times. Then, just using your hands, you're going to flatten out your dough to about the thickness that you want for your biscuits. No rolling pin required. Once you get the thickness that you were looking for, then you can grab your biscuit cutter. Then put your biscuits into a preheated 425-degree oven. Combining 2 eggs and milk into, along with thyme, crushed red pepper, lemongrass, garlic salt, about 1 cup of flour, crushed red pepper, thyme, lemongrass, garlic salt. You're going to run your knife down along the bone, allowing the bone to guide you. Boom. Okay? So, first, we're going to dredge it in our flour. Then, we're going to dredge it in our egg wash. Then, back to our flour. Then onto our waiting plate. To see if our grease is ready, and it is. We're going to add over our ribs. Boom. As you can see, another 3/4 cup of water. And I'm going to move them to the back out, because what's next is making gravy. To take 2 tablespoons of the fat that was rendered from my ribs. That fat begins to render. I'm going to add over 2 heaping tablespoons of flour. Boom. And I'm going to begin to incorporate them. While that's happening, I'm going to check on my biscuits. And there you have it. 3 flaky layered, popping apart, steaming biscuits. I'm going to allow these to cool on my cutting board. Okay. So now we just gingerly flip them over, letting them begin to cook on the other side. The baby was a sweetie, turned itself over. So they need about 3 minutes on the other side. Our gravy was just, our roux was just at the point before it was going to burn. I caught it just in time. Added over our pork stock. And now we're stirring on a pretty high heat to allow it to begin to thicken. And in a matter of moments, it begins to thicken right before your eyes. Okay, turning our temperature down to low, allowing that to continue to cook. This was a morning fraught with technical difficulties, but in the end, we pulled it out. In just over an hour, about an hour and 10 minutes, I made fried ribs, collard greens, homemade biscuits, and gravy from scratch. I'm so excited to sit down and eat this breakfast. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode, and as always, thank the good Lord for good food and good times. All that good is good, Q.